There's two important changes I want to share with you. The first one is the change to option to tax, and the second one is the new VAT penalty regime, which is, I think, very penal, and it's going to cost you a lot of money if you submit a return late and pay your VAT late. And in this video I'll cover both for you. There are some changes that the government has introduced recently which I think you ought to know about. Two specifically. One is the option to tax when buying commercial property, and the other one is the VAT penalty regime, which can be very costly. So I'm going to cover these two for you so you're aware of how they both work. Now, I don't wish you to bore you with exactly what an option to tax is, because you probably don't want to really know the mechanics. So I'm going to keep it really simple for you. An option to tax basically is when somebody brings a commercial property into the VAT regime. So let's say somebody bought a property 10 years ago for £500,000, and then after 5 years of ownership they want to do some major refurbishment work which will cost them £200,000, for example, and there's VAT payable on that. They're looking to claim back the VAT, so they opt to tax the property, which basically means they say to HMRC, can I have the VAT back for the refurb costs? And HMRC, being the nice people that they are, say of course you can, but there's two things you must do. One, charge VAT on the rent going forward, and the second thing is when you sell the property, charge VAT on the disposal proceeds. So there's an extra 20% for you to pay. The person buying then can reclaim the VAT if they opt to tax as well, and then once you've opted to tax, you're in it for the next 20 years. So that's, in a nutshell, an option to tax. You might buy some properties or commercial properties that don't have an option to tax, which basically means nobody's entered into the VAT regime. Then if you're buying a property, commercial property which is less than 3 years old, that will be VATable as well. So you just need to bear in mind when you're buying a property, ask an agent or the seller if there's an option to tax scheme, to take that into account when working out your figures and numbers and sums, so you get everything right. From the 1st of February 2023, HMRC implemented changes to notify people of the changes to the option to tax on land and property. HMRC's consultation on proposed changes to the way in which they deal with the notification of option to tax OTTS over land and property. And after HMRC's consultation, they issued Revenue and Customs Brief 1 in 2023 to announce the implementation of the proposed changes which came into effect from the 1st of February 2023. The first change is that HMRC will stop issuing OTT notification receipt letters, which is option to tax letters. OTTs notified to HMRC before the 1st of Feb 2023 will receive a standard notification receipt. From the 1st of Feb onwards though, the only form of acknowledgement issued by HMRC will be an automated email response where an OTT is notified by email. And I suggest you do it by email because it's just quicker and efficient and you can store it somewhere. A notification sent by any other means will not get acknowledged or a receipt unless HMRC requires more information, so just bear that in mind. The second change is that HMRC will no longer provide details of the option to tax notified in the last 6 years, because they expect the taxpayer to keep their records for the last 6 years, and when they're selling their property they can pass that information to the new buyer. Let's move on to the new Let's move on to the VAT penalties regime for late returns, and look at how it's going to work in practice. A new penalty regime for the late filing and or late payment of VAT returns came into effect. The penalty regime affects VAT returns from the period commencing on or after the 1st of January 2023. The new penalty regime replaces the previous default surcharge regime, which I think was pretty straightforward really, and maybe because I was used to using it. The previous default surcharge regime will still be in place for returns that started prior to the 1st of Jan 2023. So just bear that in mind. Late submission of returns now has a points-based system which has been implemented for late submission of a VAT return. For late payment penalties, the sooner you pay your penalty, the lower the penalty will be. Hey presto, I wonder why that is. Late payment penalties can be applied to both VAT returns and error corrections, and you want to make sure you avoid the errors or any errors. For late payment penalties, the sooner you pay your penalty, the lower it is going to be, so it's in your interest to pay quicker. The first penalty will be received if a payment is 16 days or more overdue. If a payment is between 16 and 30 days overdue, the penalty is calculated at 2% of the VAT owed at day 15, so it's significant and huge in my opinion. For example, if a limited company has a quarterly VAT return ending on the 31st of March in any one particular year, let's call it 2023, and there's a payment of VAT due to HMRC of £15,000, and that company submits a VAT return by the official deadline of 7th of May, and the payment is made in full, then obviously there's no late VAT return and there's no penalty due. Everything's fine. But if a payment is made on the 23rd of May, which is 16 days late, there will be a late payment penalty of £300, which is 2% of 15,000, plus interest, calculated using the Bank of England base rate, plus 2.5% on a daily basis. So it is quite penal. If the payment is, say, 37 days late, the late payment penalty would be £609.36 plus the interest, and it's obviously larger than the initial penalty. So it is very significant. The first rate of penalty is calculated at 2% of the outstanding liability at day 15. The second penalty is calculated on an additional 2% of the amount outstanding at day 30. For every day that the payment is overdue for more than 31 days, HMRC will also charge you an additional late payment penalty calculated using a penalty rate of 4% per year. So I think it's vitally important that you submit your return on time, every time, to avoid these penalties, and I think it's just good practice anyway, because late returns can trigger HMRC to look at your affairs, and you don't want that, because you've got important things to do rather than obviously sitting with HMRC and going through what they want to look at. So the less reasons you give them, the better. And also please remember that interest will be charged on all outstanding VAT payments due, so make sure that you pay on time, because if you pay on time and submit your return on time, you won't have to you can avoid all these unnecessary penalties and interest charges. And I think that's important, especially with obviously costs being quite high now and everybody working to tighter margins. It's important we avoid all unnecessary costs. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, by the way, make sure you click like, subscribe and post a comment, because that tells me that you're engaging and you're finding the content useful. And if you like this video, make sure you check out this video here, because it's the next stage in terms of your learning and development.